Welcome back to the show. I'm sorry, like Virtual On was really hard to go up against,
Yes.
just so you know, because I played the crap out of that game. I had little Fei-In figures, and when she went into her God mode, it was done.
Yeah.
Like, people would hide behind boxes.
What was hilarious was I asked some of our other staff members if they knew what this game was, and one of them was like, no. And I'm like, this is such a your game. Like, this is a you game. And they looked up and I showed them gameplay footage, and they're like, why haven't I played this game? I'm like, well, it's on a system that hasn't been around for like 20 years.
So we're joined today, as we Pocky and I are just going to geek out with Sega, with
Sega.
The one-time president of Sega of America, Tom Kalinske, who's joining us via Skype. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Hi guys, how you doing?
We're doing good. Were you listening to our Geek versus Geek a second ago?
I couldn't hear it.
Oh, we're deciding which franchise needs a reboot. I picked Fantasy Zone. He picked Virtual On, and it was a really bad argument.
It was a really good argument. We both made a really good case for them both to come back.
But I wanted the end with Fantasy Zone because that was an amazing game.
I'm still having trouble hearing you. You're going to have to speak up.
All right.
So we'll just be a little louder. How's that?
Right. How's that?
Okay, that helps.
All right. So, yeah, we are joined by Tom Kalinske today, who was the head of Sega of America and really kind of shaped a lot of our gamer futures. Like, I still have my original Master System. I had the Genesis, the 32X. I had a friend that had the Saturn, and the Dreamcast blew me away. Like, there were so many good things. And I thought, who better to bring on than the man responsible for most of that? So, thank you for being on the show and having a good time with us today. We want to just briefly talk a little bit about how you got involved with Sega, because we read Console Wars when it came out, major book, but you went from toy making to going to Sega. Like, what was the transition of that like?
Yeah, you do? Okay.
Well, it really wasn't that difficult of a transition for me. Remember when I was at Mattel, we had started Mattel Electronics, and actually the handheld bit games reported to me. And the guys who developed in television originally reported to me, but then the directors decided to spin it off as a separate company.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was familiar with television and ColecoVision and Atari back in those days. Then I got out. When I left Mattel, I didn't have anything to do with video games. A friend of mine and I bought Matchbox toys out of receivership in the UK.
Yeah.
And we turned the company around. It was in receivership because it was losing money. We made it profitable, turned it around, and while I was running that company, Hiro Nakayama contacted me, the CEO of Sega, and he contacted me and said, hey, would you guys like to distribute Sega Master System in Europe, because we had very strong distribution in Europe. And then he asked me if we would want to distribute it in the United States. And I looked at it, no. Hear me? Is the audio okay? Because I'm hearing a few pieces.
Yeah, you're kind of going up and down on your end over there.
All right, well, I'll try to speak closer to my laptop, I guess.
Okay.
So I knew Mike Nakayama, and after we sold Matchbox to Tyco, I was on vacation with my kids in Hawaii and my wife, right? And all of a sudden, Nakayama appeared on the beach in Hawaii, and he said, hey, I've been for you. I really think you need to come with me, and I'm hearing a lot of back audio on this.
Yeah,
I'm hearing a lot of voices.
Hold on, we're going to turn it down out here just a little bit. Okay.
I'm not sure if you can hear me or at all, because I'm hearing a whole lot of voices. I'm hearing a lady's voice. I'm hearing a guy's voice.
Oh, that might be in our production booth. They might have the mic turned on in there, so...
The mic is on in your mixer booth or something, because I'm hearing a whole lot of talking.
Okay, that would be them in the production booth, so they're going to fix that right now. So one of the things that we want to look at is you were part of it from, I guess, the Master System to the Dreamcast, correct?
Not quite, no. I was part of it from early 90 through launch of Saturn. I didn't have anything to do with the Dreamcast.
So one of the things we want to talk about is how Sega was really innovative in the things that they did, like long before anybody else really thought about it. Like, it's amazing when you think about everything we take for granted today. Sega was trying to do a long time ago, but the technology just wasn't where it was at. So, like, the first thing is there was a game subscription service called Sega Channel that included downloadable games.
Yes.
Well, that's like GameFly today. That's like the Xbox Games Pass. That's the Games with Gold and the PlayStation Plus. All that stuff is so commonplace now, but Sega kind of started that.
Yeah, I mean, Sega had modems and attachments to internet. I mean, I know that was some of the Japanese stuff, but I think they really they had a lot of innovation. They were the first ones to go CD or disk space that was out of the cartridge market. They had external memory cartridges to put their games onto. That's something like Sony and Microsoft was doing before, back in the day, or even Nintendo.
So, were you
that's
part of
right.
Sega Channel?
A lot of people don't realize how difficult, technically, back in those days, it was to do the Sega Channel. And my head of R&D, Joe Miller, was ready to kill me over that when I signed the deal with TCI and Time Warner to do a game subscription service on their cable networks across the United States. And he came to me one day and he said, "You don't realize what you're making us do. Every cable box in every city across the United States has slightly different specifications." And he took me into this huge room that we had at the back of Sega in Redwood City. And here were literally, I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of cable boxes. And he said, "We have to design a connector that works with every one of these damn things, and every one is different." But we got it done, and it was a great cable service. We had 250,000 subscribers at $15 a month back in the mid-'90s, and nobody had ever done anything like that. And it was really cool. I was really proud of us for doing that.
So now that you see how it is today, are you thinking, man, you guys got it way lucky?
We got way what?
Lucky.
That when you see how it is today, you're like, man, you guys have it lucky compared to what we had to do back then.
That's right. The internet makes everything so much easier in many respects. And back then, when you mentioned we went from cartridges to CD-ROM.
Yeah.
That had not been done before. And again, people today, we knew that optical discs were the way to go, but we didn't know how to program on optical discs because it was different than programming for cartridges. First of all, what we discovered we had to do was kind of do everything linearly and then download ahead of where the game player was content that he was about to play into memory that was residing in the machine, because we couldn't skip across the disk to different parts of the gameplay automatically. We had to do it a different way. So there were a lot of obstacles to overcome, and of course we were looking to combine 3D animation with live action, with great rock and roll music, and that had never been done before. So all these things were, it seems simple today, but they were very difficult back then.
And that brings us to one of our next innovations. It was Dreamcast, which you want to take this one?
So the Dreamcast was the system I promoted the stuffings out of. It had a 56K modem, had 4-player port. At the time, there was only one other system. Obviously, you can tell who ripped off who on that one. You had a VMU memory card that had a mini screen attached to it, which allowed external gameplay, which we would now use our cell phones for.
Which also, it was a multifunction. You could browse the internet. You could play games.
But there was one other thing that, and you're gonna love me for this one because we keep talking about this thing.
Hit me up.
But it was also the first console to get, other than the Neo Geo arcade machine that had like $500 cartridges, was the first one that professional gamers were using. You had Street Fighter, you had Mortal Kombat, you had Rival Schools, you had Power Stone, you had a couple of amazing games that were being played at tournament level. And the system of choice was the Dreamcast because it had an analog stick, had quick buttons, and it also had great arcade controlling. And it had the system to do it, and it had online, so they could do that.
That is something we all take for granted now. My Xbox has all my apps. It plays all my movies. It has all my games. PlayStation's the same way. It has all that stuff. And this was way before anyone really thought that was a thing. So, like, the Dreamcast, I think, was the last actually groundbreaking system.
Yes,
because
before you
it
get to
literally, it literally went to a point where it set the tone for how we are spoiled today. We are all completely spoiled. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll give you a little history on that. As I mentioned to you at the start of this, I really didn't have a lot or anything to do with the Dreamcast, except that, again, my head of R&D in the United States, Joe Miller, was just a brilliant guy. And when we were working on Genesis, we knew we had to have a new system eventually. And, we did the CD-ROM attachment to the Genesis. But then we looked at the specs of what was this Saturn. It was the next system after Genesis, before Dreamcast.
Yep.
And Joe and I didn't feel that the specs were good enough. And Joe really wanted, even though the internet was in its infancy then, he wanted to have internet connectivity to the Saturn, what became the Saturn. And, we obviously didn't succeed with that battle. But we did, I think it's referred to in the book Console Wars by Blake Harris. I think this story is in there. We were very, very close with Sony in those days, where they had hardware.
Yeah, so
and because it takes a while to develop hardware, obviously.
Yeah.
And we were very close with Olaf Olafsson and Mickey Shuloff, the president of Sony of America. And we decided it would make sense if we did a combined Sega Sony system that would share everybody loses money on hardware, especially in the first few years, share the loss on hardware, and then whoever did the best software, that would be their profits. Each company would profit individually from the software that they generated.
Yeah.
And we'd somehow split the third-party software revenues, the licensing fees from it. So we went to Japan, and Sony, the president of Sony Japan, agreed. This was a great idea. We went to Sega Japan and said, what? No, we don't want to do that. We don't want to help Sony. They don't know how to do video games. Why should we help them? But just think how the world would be different if we had done, and by the way, in the combined spec that Joe Miller and the R&D guys at Sony America had developed, it had internet connectivity. So we would have had internet connectivity after the Genesis, and it would have been a combined Sega-Sony platform. Maybe it would have been called the Sony-Sega platform, or the Sega-Sony PlayStation, or the Sega or the Sony-Sega Saturn. Who knows what it would have been called? But anyway, that was what was going on way back then before Dreamcast.
See, that kills me, because I would still be a PlayStation junkie today if it was the Sega-Sony thing. Like, I jumped from PlayStation 2 to Xbox because that was as close to what Sega was doing with Dreamcast, because I'm a very social gamer. So that had the hardware, the specs, and the way that they ran things, because that's how I play. So if we had actually had this, you and I would still be playing PlayStation together.
I think hilariously is the story gets kind of repeated a couple years later with another company who had a mascot that was an Italian plumber that that ended up screwing over, and not saying screwing over, but like they ended up getting screwed over by a company, and then jumping into the console market because they had all that technology. Why waste it? You said you went to Sega Japan. Was it? And this is something I noticed with Sega when we were doing research on Sega titles because of our what we do. I noticed there was a lot of Sega titles that never made it to the States for one reason or another. For almost like it almost seemed like no reason. Were you having trouble getting some of the games to come to the United States?
It wasn't necessarily that we were having trouble getting them to the United States. Sometimes it was just difficult to get a translation done, or we would do some research on it and find out that it didn't do as well in the United States. And remember, even though we were in the heyday of Genesis, we passed Nintendo in share of market. We were very successful in the United States. Remember, Sega Japan never had more than a 10% share of the Japanese market. So it was very hard to determine which of their games were really good, because most of them never reached the level of unit sales that we had on our worst playing games in America.
Yeah.
So it was a hard thing to decide, and you had to leave it up to our internal game playing guys and then also doing some internal research. But I don't remember if we wanted one. I don't remember it being extraordinarily difficult to get it to the United States. I remember one of the titles that everybody laughed at us bringing over was, oh gosh, now I'm going to forget the name of it. Zui. Gosh, I'm looking at my old plugs here. Herzog Zui. You remember that game?
Yes.
Which one?
Herzog.
Great game.
Oh, Herzog, yes.
Yeah.
And it actually, that was a Japanese title, and it actually did very, very well in the United States. I think we did better in the U.S. with it than it did in Japan.
Think about the big titles.
Anyway.
So the last bit of innovation that Sega brought that I really want to talk about, because this is something we all take for granted. You know, we have to thank for our little joystick controller, the Knights game and the Knights pad they made. It's not the D-pad, it's the joystick controller.
Yeah.
We now have 2 of those on our game controllers. Like, I don't even think about how that started. And that was the new fact that I discovered, was that was created for Knights. And I was like, wait, what? I totally missed that part.
No, I knew about this one. Yeah, it was developed for Knights because Knights is supposed to be a fully 3D and flyable environment, and they're like, okay, well, you can't really do an angle with a 4-point controller, which that actually helps.
Hard.
Yeah.
So how much fun was it to come up with that joypad?
Again, I don't remember the specifics, but I recognize the problem you were talking about, and we felt that we just had to have that in order to play the game properly. But I don't remember the specifics if that was one that again Joe Miller was the lead design on, or who was the head R&D guy on that. But obviously it was a good idea.
Well, we're going to get to talk about some of the Sega games we love. Like, first I'm going to ask you, what is your absolute favorite Sega game that you made of all time?
Well, for me, my favorite, and I know this is a little controversial, but my favorite is still Sonic 2. I think Sonic 2 was the best Sonic game we made. I know a lot of people think Sonic 3 was the best Sonic game we ever made, but I really love playing Sonic 2, and also because it really, emotionally, it drove the success of the Sega brand.
Yeah.
It's what allowed us to do Sonic Tuesday and establish that Tuesday was the day that video games from forever on would be released. And we remember, again, it had never been done before.
Nope.
We had Sonic 2 in every retail outlet in America and Europe on that Tuesday. And some of the stores opened at 12:01 after midnight, minute after midnight. But they all had it ready to go on the shelves on the same day, and that had never been done before. So in that I relate to. I love the gameplay, but I also love the fact that it really wants to be over the top in success.
I love Sonic 2, but you know what I hated about it? Tails always dragging just behind you on the special zones to get hit by those damn mines.
That's what he's there for?
You're breaking up again.
Oh, yeah, we were talking about the worst part of Sonic 2 was Tails in the special stage, how he was always just a fraction of a second behind you. Boom! There goes your rings on a mine.
Guys, I can't hear you. You're breaking up.
Oh, yeah, you froze there for a second. So, yeah, Sonic 2 was a good deal of fun. Pocky, what is your favorite Sega game?
My favorite Sega game was, from the Master era, was actually, blah, 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 blah. Was actually Sonic also, too. Sonic 3 actually was mine.
Yeah. Mine is Space Channel 5. I am such a Space Channel 5 junkie. Like, I wrote a script in my house on how to do it as a movie.
Wait.
I had statues, like any Sega game.
Oh, I thought you were just meaning for the Master System.
No, I didn't say anything.
Oh, my absolute Sonic favorite was either Virtual On or Gauntlet. For the Dreamcast?
Yeah.
No, Sega for the Gauntlet for the Sega Dreamcast was awesome.
Was awesome.
For the Dreamcast was awesome, yeah.
So, it's been a lot of fun having Tom Kalinske on to just kind of talk about Sega and just geek out with him a little bit. It's been a lot of fun. Sorry for the connection problems on Skype right now, but thank you for being on the show.
You've made his year.
Yeah, and just hearing you talk about Sonic 2 and just the funness, because Console Wars was amazing. I cannot wait to see how they're going to do the movie. Like, I love it. You shaped a lot of people without probably ever knowing it at the time, and now you're just this historical figure for Sega that I'm glad that I got to talk to. So thank you for being on Fanservice today with us, and keep up the good work.
Thank you for being part of the industry we love so much.
Yeah.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for doing what you do. I love the fact that there are so many people that relate the games and the things that we did way back in the 90s. And I do think it really led the way forward to building this industry from a relatively small industry to a $100 billion industry. And we extended the age range of players from just children and teens to college and post-college. And now I think the average age of a game player is probably 35 or something. And I think that's just terrific.
Yeah. And you had a heavy hand in that, so I guess we all have to say thank you as gamers, all these esport gamers, everything, because Sega really set the standard for today's gaming industry. I'm not even going to lie. Looking at the list of everything and the great franchises, people back here nodding like, yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about. So once again, thanks for being on the show. I hope you enjoyed it, and just thank you immensely for everything you've done.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so that was been our Sega Talk with Tom Kalinske. I had lots of fun with that one, despite all of our Skype technical problems. But you know what? It's not done. Pocky and I have a brand new 10 things list for you of forgotten Sega games that you may have forgotten about, but we still know about and how much fun they are. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with 10 things after this.